Now, looking at each of the mechanisms to get things across the cell membrane in turn, we're going to again start off with these passive processes. By definition, they do not require ATP. The first one is simple diffusion. And so simple diffusion involves solutes going from a high concentration to a low concentration, which is what I talked about on the introductory slide of this concept. So this is going to require a concentration gradient. You're going to have a difference of molecules across the membrane in order for them to come across. This is very similar if you think about a cube or a tab of dye, color dye, and you drop it in water. This cube of dye is very, very concentrated. Another example you may think of is when you're dyeing Easter eggs and you drop those little colored tabs into water or vinegar, and essentially these little tabs are highly concentrated molecules of color dye, right? And they want to spread apart as soon as they're introduced into water, which is why your water will eventually turn a uniform color, because those molecules are trying to equally distribute themselves from one another. And that's what happens as you let the little dye tabs sit in the vinegar or the water. Some of the things that'll affect how fast something can diffuse through a membrane or across a membrane are temperature. It's very important to understand that all of these factors are what can happen in the body, and so they can affect how your cells function because it affects how fast things can get across the membrane. If you increase the temperature, then molecules move faster, okay? And so this is, if you have a higher temperature, molecules that want to go from a high concentration to a low concentration are going to cross that membrane more quickly. The opposite is true. If it's cold, then molecules move more slowly. The weight of a molecule. A larger molecule is going to move slower than a smaller molecule. So you can just think simply of mass. Something that has more mass is going to take more time to get somewhere than something that has less mass comparatively. The steepness of the concentration gradient, what we mean by that. If you have 100 molecules in one side and only 2 on the other side of the membrane, that's a fairly steep concentration gradient. There's a very big difference, I guess is what you should say, is that the difference between the high side and the low side, the bigger that difference is, the faster those molecules are going to move. So 100 to 2 compared to 4 molecules on the outside and 2 molecules on the inside, that's not a very high concentration gradient compared to 100 to 2. The membrane surface area. The more surface area there is, the more molecules can cross. So the more surface area of membrane there is, the more the molecules can cross, so you're going to increase that rate of diffusion. Membrane permeability. This is also kind of logical. The more permeable a membrane is to a certain molecule, then the faster it's going to move across. If you have one channel or one lane open at the grocery store, it takes a long time for people to get checked out. If you have 5 lanes open at the grocery store, that increases the rate at which they get through the checkout. So similarly with molecules, the more lanes you have open, the more quickly they're going to diffuse.